Welcome to the Deep Dive, the shortcut to being well-informed. Today, we are undertaking a deep, maybe restorative plunge into some principles, psychological and spiritual, that underpin a lot of enduring advice on personal achievement.
That's right. We're looking at key excerpts from The Power of Positive Thinking.
And we're not treating it like, a history text.
No, not at all. More like a personal improvement manual, really. It claims to offer these blueprints, scientific, it says, yet simple for a happier, more satisfying kind of victorious life.
And our job today, our mission, is to sort of extract the mechanics, right?
Exactly. We wanted to distill 5 core blueprints it presents for changing life outcomes. The big ones, the author claims, if you practice them, lead almost inevitably to new life, new power, increased efficiency, and greater happiness.
So these are the blueprints for, what were they again? Self-belief?
Inner peace, constant energy, this idea of practical prayer, and deliberate happiness. Those are the 5 pillars.
Okay, and the framework is what the author calls applied Christianity.
Yes, though the techniques themselves are pitched as sort of universal, successful living practices. The big promise is, if you change inwardly, your whole world changes outwardly.
Right. It all starts from within. Okay, let's unpack that immediately. Blueprint number 1, which the source says is the absolute foundation. Believe in yourself.
And it starts with a pretty startling statistic, actually, about just how widespread this confidence issue is.
It really is startling. What was it, 75%?
75%. In a major survey cited in the text, 3/4 of the people asked listed lack of confidence as their major problem in life.
Wow. That's not just a minor hurdle. It points to a huge kind of collective emotional issue, doesn't it? Feelings of inadequacy, insecurity.
Definitely. And what's crucial, the author immediately labels this whole thing, this frustration of power, he calls it, as completely unnecessary.
Unnecessary. Why?
Well, the argument is that the average person is just massively underestimating their own abilities. They're sort of crawling through life feeling defeated, not because they lack actual talent or potential,
but because they lack belief. Conviction.
Precisely. So the first step prescribed is diagnosis. You have to approach your emotional life almost like a doctor would approach an illness. You need to figure out why you feel you lack power.
It's not always about what's happening right now, is it?
No. The text argues self-doubt often isn't about a current failure. It's more about these ingrained patterns, often starting way back in childhood, that just get reinforced over and over again through the years.
The source uses some pretty vivid examples of this. I'm thinking of the anecdote about the man who, talks too much.
Right. He was always holding forth, trying to impress everyone, parading his knowledge. You know the type.
Overcompensating.
Exactly. But when they dug into it, the root cause was this really profound feeling of inferiority. He'd grown up poor, didn't have the college background, the fraternity connections that his business associates had.
So he felt he constantly had to prove himself.
Every single second. Which, of course, just made him come across as aggressive and, insecure. The very thing he was trying to hide.
It's a classic compensation mechanism. And the author himself admits to struggling with this.
Oh, yeah. He's quite open about his own battle with an inferiority complex. He talks about being painfully thin as a kid, getting called skinny all the time. Apparently, it caused him real agony. He desperately wanted to be fat, just to feel normal.
And there was something else, too, wasn't there? The preacher's son thing.
Yes. He felt trapped by that stereotype, expected to be all nice and namby-pamby. So he rebelled against it, tried to project this hard-boiled fellow image just to escape the label.
You can see how those kinds of internal conflicts would just drain your energy and confidence, right, from a young age.
Absolutely. So if the problem runs that deep, what's the immediate fix the source offers? It's something called the power affirmation.
Right. There's that story of the desperate businessman. He buttonholes the author after a lecture, totally convinced he's going to fail this big deal the next morning.
Yeah, he's in a panic. And the advice he gets is immediate, very direct. The author hands him a card with a phrase from the Bible on it.
And tells him to just repeat it.
Constantly. Repeat it over and over, even on the subway ride home. The phrase was, I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. Philippians 4:13.
And the effect on the man was pretty dramatic.
Stunning, apparently. He came back later just amazed, saying something like, it's incredible that a few words from the Bible could do so much. He felt his confidence surge back, and he could actually face the meeting the next day with the power he needed.
Which leads to a really core insight in the book, doesn't it? That our attitude is actually more important than the facts of the situation.
Exactly. This huge point. When you're stuck in that inferiority complex, you're not seeing reality clearly. You're seeing the facts, sure. but through these discolored attitudes.
So the solution isn't necessarily changing the external facts.
Not initially. It's about achieving what the author calls a normal view. And he argues that a truly normal view is always slanted towards the positive simply because the immense untapped power we all have inside us.
Okay, but how do you get that positive slant when you feel completely beaten down? There's a practical technique for this, right? The asset inventory.
Yes, this is key. And it's not just about positive thinking. It's about getting real, about reappraising the actual truth of your situation, even in the dark moments.
There's that case study of the 52-year-old man.
Right, the one who came in saying everything had been swept away, he'd had some failures, felt he had absolutely nothing left, zero assets.
That feeling of total collapse, psychological zero.
Mm-hmm. And the author insists they sit down right there and then and systematically list everything that hadn't been taken away. What were the fundamental pillars still standing in his life?
So what did they come up with?
They listed 7 core assets, big ones. First, his wife, 30 years married, incredibly supportive, would never leave him. Second, his 3 devoted children. Third, his friends, who still held him in high regard.
Okay, those are huge already.
Definitely. Fourth was his integrity. He had a clear conscience. Fifth, his physical health was still good. Sixth, the fact that he lived in the United States, which the author frames as a land of great opportunity.
And the last one?
His religious faith. So 7 major assets.
And when the man actually looked at that list, stared at those 7 things,
the perspective just flipped, didn't it? He went from feeling utterly ruined to realizing he was actually incredibly wealthy in the things that truly matter.
It's a cognitive shift.
Exactly. That simple act of reappraisal, rooted in gratitude and just acknowledging the truth, released the mental energy he needed to start over. And he did, successfully.
It really brings home that quote, I think it was Dr. Carl Menninger cited in the book, attitudes are more important than facts.
Precisely. We let negative things get inflated by fear and worry until they seem all-powerful, when they're really not. The inventory forces a more proportional and ultimately positive view.
So to make this really practical for you listening, the source lays out 10 specific, workable rules for building confidence. We should probably run through these.
Yeah, let's hit the highlights. They're like an action plan. Rule 1, formulate and hold a clear mental picture of yourself succeeding. Really burn it into your mind. Never let it fade.
Rule 2, when a negative thought about your abilities pops up, deliberately say a positive one out loud immediately. Actively cancel it out. It's like thought combat.
Rule 3, minimize obstacles in your mind. Don't inflate them with fear. See them as hurdles, not walls.
Rule 4, don't try to be someone else. Be yourself. Your unique talents are your power. Authenticity is key here.
Rule 5, repeat this phrase 10 times a day. If God be for us, who can be against us? The source even suggests pausing right now and saying it slowly, confidently. Practice the assertion.
Rule 6, get help understanding where your self-doubt comes from. A competent counselor, the book suggests. Often it starts in childhood. Understanding is the first step to healing.
Rule 7, another affirmation 10 times daily. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. Reinforcing that core power statement.
Rule 8, make a realistic assessment of your abilities. Then add 10%. Don't sell yourself short, ever.
Rule 9, put yourself in God's hands. Consciously believe you're receiving power from an infinite source right now. Feel it flowing in.
And Rule 10, simply refuse to believe you're defeated. Act successful, talk successful, think successful, even if things look rough temporarily. Fake it till you make it, almost.
Kind of, but with a foundation of genuine belief building underneath. That whole list, it's a concrete plan for building confidence from the inside out.
It's amazing how much our internal dialogue shapes everything. But okay, even if you build that self-belief, the text argues you can't sustain real power if your mind is full of chaos, right?
Exactly. Which brings us neatly to our second set of blueprints. Generating power through peace and energy.
Chapter 2 focuses on peace first, and it makes this really strong link between mental state and physical energy.
It does. A troubled mind leads directly to exhaustion. You could sleep for 10 hours, but if your mind is racing with worry or resentment, you'll still feel drained. The prescription given is biblical. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12.2.
So it's about actually changing the pattern of your thoughts.
Yes. And the main technique for this is what the author calls the mind cleansing technique. It starts with just letting go of all that inner conflict.
There's that striking story of the man who called the author completely frantic.
Yes.
Yes.
Totally overcome with turmoil. And the instruction was simply to pray right there on the phone and just pour it all out.
And he did.
Apparently, he started crying and just unloaded years of accumulated hate, frustration, failure, resentment. Just let it all go. The release was immediate and profound. He felt clean inside and happy and peaceful right afterward.
So that emptying out, that mental garbage disposal is step one, non-negotiable.
Absolutely. But then comes the crucial next step. The mind hates a vacuum, right?
Right. You have to fill it back up.
Immediately, the author stresses this. You have to flood your mind instantly with healthy, positive, spiritual thoughts, constructive thoughts.
Why immediately?
Because those old negative thoughts, the fears, the worries, the resentments, they're like stubborn old tenants. They will try to creep back in.
So you need something already in place.
Exactly. They need to find a sign on the door saying occupied. And the new thoughts, the positive ones, have to be strong enough, well fortified enough to keep the old patterns out permanently.
Okay, and how do you nurture those healthy thoughts? The text talks about silence and visualization.
Yes, the therapy of silence and visualization. The core requirement is simple, but apparently hard for many people. Insist on at least 15 minutes of absolute quiet every single day.
15 minutes doesn't sound like much, but...
But the author makes this interesting observation, especially about Americans at the time, saying they're just not skilled in silence. We live with constant noise traffic, radios, TVs, now phones.
And even if we think we're tuning it out,
The subconscious never ignores it. It leads to this low-level but constant nervous system fatigue, noise fatigue. It drains us without us realizing.
so carve out that quiet time. And then the visualization part.
That's the second piece. The author uses his own experience sitting on a balcony at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel in Waikiki, just soaking in the peaceful scene, the palms, the surf, the flowers, and feeling this indescribably healing effect.
Like storing up peace.
Precisely. The instruction is to consciously enshrine those peaceful scenes in your memory. Build a mental library of tranquility.
So you can access it later.
Exactly. Create a private mental retreat. So when you're stuck in traffic or in a stressful meeting, you can take a quick planned and deliberate excursion back to that quiet beach or that peaceful forest glade, whatever your scene is. Just for a moment to recalibrate and find that inner peace again.
That makes sense. Okay, so from peace, we move to energy, chapter 3, how to have constant energy.
And here the focus shifts more strongly to the mind-body connection. The idea is that energy isn't trained primarily by physical work.
It's the emotional and psychological stuff.
Yes. Things like fear, resentment, inner conflicts, and obsessions. That's what really saps our vitality. Being emotionally disorganized wastes our natural force.
The book uses a great analogy for this, the clocks.
Right. The modern clock, with its short, fast pendulum tick-tocking away, it seems to be shouting, time to get busy, hurry up.
Which creates this constant feeling of pressure, of being rushed. It's exhausting.
Totally. But compare that to the old grandfather clock, with its long, slow pendulum swing. Its rhythm is more like there is plenty of time. Much calmer, much more sustainable.
So the solution is to find that slower rhythm.
It's about getting into what the author calls the time synchronization of Almighty God, which is described as moving imperturbably, slowly, and with perfect organization. It's about finding a natural, sustainable pace instead of frantic rushing.
There's another anecdote here, the industrialist.
Yes, he told the author that the best workers in his factory, the ones who ended the day least tired, were those who somehow managed to get into harmony, into rhythm with the machine they were operating.
They weren't fighting it.
No, they were working with its natural rhythm. And the idea is, if you can learn to work with the natural, steady rhythm of the universe, or God, or the infinite, however you frame it, you actually draw energy instead of just frantically spending it.
Okay, makes sense conceptually, but how do you practically tap into this infinite energy source?
There's a specific prayer visualization technique described.
Yeah.
You're told to first quiet your soul, make it still, quiescent.
Like finding that inner silence again.
Exactly. And then you pray a specific affirmation, something like, Dear God, you are the source of all energy. I hereby draw energy from you from an illimitable source.
And you visualize it.
You practice believing it, visualizing that energy flowing into you, consciously tuning into the infinite, and at the same time, consciously letting go of those emotional drains, the fear, the resentment, the conflicts.
And the book suggests the biggest drains are fear and guilt.
Oh, absolutely. The combination is lethal to energy levels. Think of the man who couldn't sleep.
Right. Described as trying to sleep sandwiched between fear on one side and guilt on the other.
No amount of sleeping pills could fix that, because the root problem wasn't physical. It was psychological and spiritual turmoil.
So what happened to him?
Eventually, through genuinely seeking forgiveness and working to let go of the guilt, and also confronting and releasing his fears, his personality could function normally again. The internal conflict stopped.
And his energy came back.
Quickly. Proving, the author argues, that his exhaustion was primarily spiritual and emotional, not physical. Release the blockages and the energy flows.
Okay. One last thing from this section and the problem of just feeling stale. Burnout. Monotonous routine.
Yes, that dullness, that pressure and routine can create. The story of the university professor is fascinating here. He was completely stale.
And the cure was pretty drastic.
Very. He was given a 6-month sabbatical, all expenses paid, but with one condition.
Only one book.
Only one book, the Bible. He was sent off to a remote cabin, away from his huge library and all his usual intellectual stimulation.
Must have been tough for a professor.
Initially, yes. He really struggled with a limited mental diet. But being forced into this deep immersion in just one single, profound spiritual text, it eventually led to this immense appeal and renewal.
He came back changed.
Transformed, the book says. Renewed vitality, fresh perspective. It highlights the power of a focused spiritual retreat, a kind of mental sabbatical, to break through that feeling of staleness.
Fascinating. Okay, that sets us up perfectly for the next section where we really get into practical application. Our third major area. Try prayer power.
And the source is very intentional here. It frames prayer not as some vague mystical hope, but as a scientific system of practical techniques. It's about methodology.
Right, moving from just belief to specific repeatable actions. And the core formula for problem solving and achieving goals is this sequence: prayerize, picturize, actualize, PPA.
PPA. Yeah, we should definitely spend some time unpacking that because it's really central to the practical advice. Let's start with prayerize.
What does that actually mean?
Prayerize means setting up a daily system of creative prayer. Not just rattling off requests, but really talking things over, problems, ambitions, ideas with God, conceived as a close, active partner.
Like an ongoing conversation.
Exactly. Taking that idea of pray without ceasing, almost literally. Establishing an active collaboration throughout your day, not just informal prayer times. Moving away from just asking towards partnership.
Okay, so prayerize is establishing the connection, then comes picturize.
This is the visualization part.
Yeah.
Once you've established that connection, you need to create a very clear, very positive mental image of the success or the outcome you desire.
And just hold that picture.
Hold it tenaciously in your mind, the book says. Fill it with faith. Make it real in your imagination first. Print it on your consciousness.
And the final step, actualize.
This is where human effort comes in. It means you have to do your part. Work hard, work intelligently, take the necessary steps. But, crucially, you do this while maintaining that absolute conviction and belief that the success you visualize is coming to pass.
So it's a combination: faith, visualization, and practical hard work.
That's the trinity the author claims gets results. Action, belief, and the mental picture working together.
And this PPA formula isn't just for business goals, right? The book applies it to personal relationships, too.
Oh, yes. There's the example of the married woman who felt deeply inferior, antagonistic, and was basically driving her husband away.
How did she use PPA?
Well, she prayerized by seeking guidance on changing her own attitude, not just blaming him. She picturized herself not as inadequate or resentful, but as capable, attractive, confident, centered.
And the actualize part.
She actively worked on her self-centeredness, her negativity, her internal disposition. She put in the effort to change her behavior based on that new mental picture.
And the outcome.
Dramatic, according to the source. It claims her marriage was essentially saved by the 90th day. It shows the power of the formula working from the inside out. Changing the self first leads to changes in external circumstances and relationships.
And it gets applied to the corporate world, too, the idea session story.
Right. The 4 executives who used it for business strategy, they treated it like spiritual science applied to brainstorming.
How did that work?
They'd meet somewhere quiet, no distractions. And they mandated starting every section with 10 minutes of absolute silent prayer.
Praying for what?
Specifically affirming their belief that God was right then releasing the creative ideas they needed for their business challenges.
Okay. And after the silence?
Then they'd just pour out ideas, write them on cards. And one crucial rule: no criticism allowed during the idea generation phase. Just pure, uninhibited flow.
Did it work?
Apparently, yes. As they practiced it, the quality and quantity of viable ideas increased significantly. They reported gaining insights that not only show on our balance sheet, but we have also gained a new feeling of confidence.
It's like blending meditation, affirmation, and brainstorming. Very interesting. The source also talks about prayer not just as talking to God, but as sending out vibrations.
Yes, vibrations of goodwill. It leans into this idea that prayer is a form of energy transmission.
Almost like the law of attraction.
A bit like that. By praying positively for others, even strangers, you're sending out these positive vibrations into the world. And the belief is that this somehow creates a positive feedback loop benefiting both them and you.
There are those little anecdotes about praying for people on the train.
Yeah, the man with the deep scowl on the bus, the rather unpleasant boorish man in the Pullman car, the little kid with the dirty face who looked lovable underneath.
He wasn't expecting an immediate change in them.
No, it wasn't about instant results. It was more about the act itself consciously sending out thoughts of goodwill, kindness, affirmation towards them. Believing that even that momentary, invisible contact could have a positive influence somehow.
Okay, to make prayer really practical, let's pull out maybe the top 3 rules the book emphasizes.
Good idea. First, a big one. Don't always be asking for things. Spend most of your prayer time giving thanks, affirming that blessings are already being given. This shifts your whole mindset from lack to abundance.
Okay, gratitude over petition. What's second?
Never, ever use a negative thought in prayer. If you're picturizing, it must be the positive outcome you desire. The book is adamant. Only positive thoughts generate positive results in this framework.
No room for doubt or negativity in the prayer itself. And the third one, this might be the hardest.
It probably is for many people. Pray for people you actively dislike or who have genuinely mistreated you.
Why? That seems counterintuitive.
The reason given is stark and powerful.
Huh.
Resentment is blockade number 1 of spiritual power. Holding on to bitterness, anger, or a grudge literally blocks your own connection to spiritual energy. Regardless of what the other person did, you have to release it for your own sake, to free up your own channel.
Wow, that really clears the path for a final blueprint, doesn't it? How to create your own happiness.
It does. And the starting point here is maybe the most challenging idea of all. That happiness isn't just something that happens to you based on circumstances. It's largely a deliberate choice.
We have to talk about the old man anecdote here. The one who was always cheerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
When someone finally asked him his secret, he said it was plain as the nose on your face.
What was the secret?
He said basically, when I wake up each morning, I have 2 choices. I can choose to be happy, or I can choose to be unhappy. And what do you think I do? I just choose to be happy.
It sounds so simple, but it cuts through so much complexity, doesn't it? It makes happiness a daily decision, an act of will.
It really does. And this idea of choice directly informs the concept of manufacturing unhappiness.
Meaning we actually create our own misery.
The source argues yes, often we do. Unhappiness isn't just a state we fall into. It's something we actively distill out of the ingredients of life, using our negative thoughts and toxic attitudes as the distiller.
The example of the lady in the railroad dining car illustrates this perfectly.
Oh, vividly. Here she is, expensively dressed in a nice dining car. Should be comfortable, right?
Yeah, I think so.
But she's loudly complaining to anyone who will listen. The car is dingy, the service is terrible, the food is inedible. She's just generating misery for herself, moment by moment.
And her husband's later comment.
Maybe a bit blunt, but he says to the author, she manufactures her own unhappiness. She had all the raw materials for a pleasant experience, but chose to process them through a filter of negativity, producing misery instead. If you think unhappy thoughts, you become an unhappiness factory.
So what's the antidote? How do you choose happiness instead?
The book emphasizes cultivating a childlike spirit and spiritual simplicity. Getting back to a heart that isn't cynical, jaded, or constantly weighed down by past hurts or future worries. Maintaining a sense of spiritual freshness.
Like seeing things anew each day.
Exactly. And this translates into a specific daily habit. The practice of speaking happy thoughts aloud every single morning. Affirming a positive day before it even starts.
Is there a suggested script?
Something along the lines of, I believe this is going to be a wonderful day. I feel good physically, mentally, emotionally. Things aren't going to fall apart today. Really setting a positive expectation.
And the danger of not doing this is that you might affirm the negative.
Precisely. The book warns strongly against visualizing or affirming an unhappy outcome. If you wake up thinking, oh, today's going to be a disaster, you actually tend to subconsciously steer events towards that negative outcome. You attract negativity through expectation. Affirming the positive helps cause things to turn out better.
It's about setting the mental trajectory for the day.
Yes. And finally, underpinning all this happiness creation is the practical application of love and goodwill towards others. The author states plainly that human love is a fundamental principle for both success and happiness.
And this is embodied in the story of Ralston Young, Redcap number 42.
Beautifully so. Ralston worked at Grand Central Station, but he saw his real job not as carrying bags, but as spreading Christian fellowship, as being an evangelist of simple goodwill.
And there's that interaction with the elderly lady in the wheelchair.
Yes, she was crying, clearly distressed. He was wheeling her to her train, but he sensed she needed more than just transport.
So what did he do?
He paused, closed his eyes for a moment, and asked for guidance on how to help her. The idea that came to him was incredibly simple. Compliment her dress.
Just a compliment.
Just a compliment. He told her she looked beautiful in her dress, and instantly her whole demeanor changed. She brightened up, stopped crying, a small act of kindness prompted by a moment of seeking guidance.
But the story doesn't end there, does it?
No. A year later, the woman's daughter found Ralston at the station. Her mother had passed away, but she had left a specific message for him,
What was the message?
emphasizing how much his simple kindness that day, the compliment, the feeling of love behind it had meant to her, how it had helped her through her difficult final year.
Wow. It shows the ripple effect of small acts of goodwill.
Absolutely. By deliberately focusing on building others up, expressing genuine kindness and love, you fill your own life with a sense of dynamic, happy purpose. The source concludes very simply, where love is, God is, and where God and love are, happiness naturally follows.
Okay, let's try to synthesize these 5 big blueprints then. We started with self-belief. The core issue is that unnecessary feeling of inadequacy.
Cured, or at least treated, by the power affirmation, those strong positive statements, and the asset inventory technique, which forces a realistic positive reevaluation of what you do have.
Then we move to peace, realizing that exhaustion often comes from a troubled mind, not just physical work.
And the therapy involves that mind-clearing technique, getting rid of the mental clutter and then immediately refilling the mind with healthy, positive thoughts, reinforced by daily silence and peaceful visualization, creating that inner sanctuary.
Third was energy, understanding that fatigue is often emotional drainage, primarily from fear and guilt.
Right. The remedy involves ditching that frantic, rushed, time-to-get-busy mindset and consciously syncing up with a calmer, more deliberate, infinite rhythm, drawing energy through visualization and releasing those emotional blockades.
Then the practical application section gave us prayer power, seeing prayer as a scientific method.
Using the PPA formula, prayerize, partnering with the divine, picturize, holding the positive image, and actualize, working hard with faith, and crucially, clearing resentment, that #1 spiritual blockade.
And finally, we covered happiness, framing it fundamentally as a daily, deliberate choice.
Yes, choosing not to manufacture unhappiness with negative thoughts. Instead, adopting that childlike simplicity, affirming a good day every morning, and actively practicing goodwill and love towards others.
So pulling it all together, the core premise seems to be what?
What you are determines the world in which you live. That's the bottom line. If you truly commit to changing your inner landscape, your thoughts, attitudes, beliefs, expectations, your external world, your experiences will inevitably change to match.
Which leaves us with a really potent thought to consider, building on that idea that maybe the rough is only mental, and that we tend to get what we deeply expect. Here's the question for you, the listener.
If you had to pinpoint one single, persistent, negative thought pattern in your own life, one way you might be manufacturing your own unhappiness or limiting your potential, what would it be?
And more importantly, if you could choose to eliminate that one pattern today, what specific power, what potential do you think that would release for your own success and happiness going forward?
Something to chew on. The power to change it, the author insists, is already inside you. It's just waiting for that choice.
A deep dive indeed. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
You know, if you're like us, you probably spend a lot of mental energy just trying to stay on top of things, right? Mastering all the external stuff, data, news, what's happening in your field.
Absolutely. The information overload is real.
But there's this other thing, isn't there? This kind of silent saboteur to actually succeeding. The real fight often isn't, against the competition or the spreadsheets. It's internal.
That emotional static, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. That constant background noise, the worry, the fretting that just grinds you down, the self-doubt, That feels like the real barrier sometimes to living a life that feels well worthwhile.
And that's exactly where we want to focus today. We're going to uh, really dig into some sources that shift away from those external productivity hacks. They offer more of an applied spiritual science, you could say.
The spiritual science.
Yeah, designed specifically for mastering that inner chaos. And these aren't just, nice sayings. They're presented as practical, proven techniques to help you build a genuinely happy, satisfying, and yes, productive life.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty targeted then. We're looking to pull out the specific actionable methods these sources give for breaking those habits that defeat the chronic worry.
Right. We need to find the formulas, the actual mechanisms they claim can unlock your own problem-solving power.
And the promise is, well, that these techniques can immediately boost your peace, your efficiency.
That's the claim. That you'll walk away from this deep dive with specific things you can actually do. Repeatable methods. Think of it as a direct action personal improvement manual.
Okay.
We're going to break down the processes for things like intentionally slowing your pace, stopping those destructive thought loops cold.
Interrupting them.
Yes. And how to channel your whole being, physical, emotional, spiritual, towards expecting positive outcomes. Moving from just playing defense against the negativity.
Stopping the static.
To actually going on offense. Actively achieving what you're capable of. All right, let's get right into it. Starting with what the sources call this constant energy drain, fuming and fretting. Sounds a bit old-fashioned, maybe. It might sound old-fashioned, but the sources are clear. These are really destructive emotional reactions, habits that just systematically suck your energy, cloud your thinking.
And make you less effective.
Totally, and it's not new either. The text actually points out, the Bible specifically warns against it, fret not thyself.
Okay, but, modern life feels designed to make us fret. Everything's so fast. Why is it that speeding up seems to automatically trigger this kind of fuming and fretting? What's the link?
Well, the core issue identified is exactly that, the pace problem. Modern life, industrial, digital, whatever. It's just too fast. The sources argue we live in this state of fundamental disorganization because everything's accelerated beyond a natural, effective rhythm. The clock analogy they use really nails it.
The grandfather clock versus the modern clock. Tell us about that. It's quite vivid.
Yeah, you picture that old grandfather clock, right? That deliberate, slow, heavy tick-tock. It almost embodies patience.
There is plenty of time.
Exactly. It sets this measured, calm tempo. But then you contrast that with, the quick, sharp tick of modern clocks.
Time to get busy. Time to get busy.
Right. Everything around us is pushing us to speed up. And that constant rush, that headlong pace, it just wears us out. It makes us tired, brittle, prone to snapping, to fuming.
So the idea isn't necessarily about moving faster to be efficient, but finding the right rhythm, a less hurried one.
Precisely. The solution offered is to consciously seek out and get into God's rhythm.
God's rhythm.
Yeah, described as this imperturbable, slow, perfectly organized tempo.
Okay, but hold on. How does someone with, say, 10 deadlines by Friday adopt an imperturbable, slow tempo? That sounds, impossible, like a contradiction.
It definitely feels like one, and the sources tackle that directly. They say the process has to start with physical discipline. Yeah, recognizing the link, the very real physiological connection between what your body is doing and how you're feeling emotionally, it's key. When you're fuming, your body gears up for a fight, right? Muscles tense, heart races, voice gets louder.
Sure. Fight or flight.
Exactly. So the technique is to deliberately counteract that heat with coolness, to give your nervous system a counter command.
You mentioned some really specific, almost weird physical tricks for this, like the guy in the meeting who just lay down.
Yeah, it's a great anecdote. This man's in a super tense business meeting, feeling the anger, the pressure just building up.
We've all been there.
Right. So what does he do? Takes off his coat, walks over to a couch in the room, and just lies down. Flat out.
His colleagues must have been stunned.
Totally. But he explained why. He said basically it's difficult to get mad lying down. Physiologically, it's hard. By forcing his body into a relaxed posture, he broke that emotional feedback loop.
That's actually brilliant. Applied psychology on the fly. If you can't control the feeling instantly, control the body that's having the feeling.
That's the idea.
So what else? What if lying down isn't exactly an option in your open plan office?
Well, the principle is opposition. If anger makes you clench your fists, deliberately unclench them, force them open, maybe flat on the desk.
Consciously relax the hands, yeah. Or, another really good one, lower your voice. Deliberately depress it to an exaggeratedly low, quiet tone. The text notes, you cannot carry on an argument in a whisper. That's true.
The physical act of forcing your voice down and slowing it makes that emotional explosion almost impossible. You're physically checking yourself, forcing at least temporary control.
This leads nicely into maybe the most memorable and definitely the most whimsical piece of advice here, the cemetery prescription.
Ah, yes. That was given to this super successful, aggressive, go-getter type businessman, the kind who genuinely felt the weight of the world was on his shoulders, you know?
Constantly hustling, frantic energy.
Exactly. And the physician saw the problem wasn't really physical. It was this inflated ego combined with a totally unhealthy, frantic pace.
So the prescription wasn't pills.
No. It was designed to deflate the ego and force a pace change. He ordered the man to take 2 hours, every workday for a long, slow walk. No phone, no rushing.
2 hours daily, wow.
But the kicker, the really unique part, was he also had to spend half a day every single week in a cemetery.
A half day. In a graveyard. What on earth was the point of that? Meditating among the dead.
Pretty much. He was specifically told to wander around and look at the gravestones, especially of men who, like him, probably thought the world depended entirely on them.
Oof. Talk about a perspective check, the ultimate perspective check. And while sitting there, he had to meditate on this line from Psalm 90. 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night.
Ah.
Wow. That forces you to confront your own scale, doesn't it? Your own importance or lack thereof in the grand scheme.
And the sheer scale of time. It compels you to realize, okay, maybe the universe doesn't grind to a halt if I step away from my email for an hour. Maybe this frantic pace is driven by my ego, not actual necessity.
Did it work for him?
The sources say yes, absolutely. He got perspective, learned the crucial skill of delegation, which his ego had previously blocked, and the result was more peace, surprisingly better efficiency, and higher quality work.
He found serenity, but through this really direct, almost shocking method.
Exactly. It's an extreme example, maybe, but it points to the larger technique. The need for deliberate, planned excursions to peace. Stopping to stop. Creating that internal quiet space, even if you can't go to a cemetery.
Precisely. The general advice is you have to practice serenity intentionally, even if it's just through visualization for a few minutes. Picture calm scenes, mountains, valleys, still water reflecting autumn leaves.
Like a mental mini vacation.
Yeah. And the key thing the text emphasizes is doing this for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, preferably right in the middle of your busiest time.
To deliberately break that frantic momentum.
Yes. You have to learn that the easiest path to an easy mind is to actively create it by interrupting the rush, which I think leads us perfectly into tackling that other pervasive habit, worry, right? If fuming is that hot, quick flare-up, worry is more like that constant low-level hum of anxiety that just drains you over time.
That's a good way to put it. And the sources highlight the word's origin, worry, comes from an old Anglo-Saxon word meaning to choke.
To choke, wow.
Yeah. Habitual worry literally chokes off the flow of vital power, of energy. And as we'll see, it has real physical consequences too.
And the medical stuff cited is pretty stark, isn't it? Worry isn't just unpleasant, it's actively harmful. The text connects it to things like arthritis, high blood pressure, heart problems, ulcers.
Yeah, the cumulative stress, the tension worry it's a physical burden. And that means it needs well, maybe not purely physical, but a definite cure.
So what's the antidote, according to these sources?
Well, they actually looked at centenarians, people who lived really long, seemingly content lives.
What did they find? What were their habits?
A pretty clear pattern emerged. They generally kept busy, but with moderation. They ate lightly. They actually had fun, kept regular, often early hours.
Sounds sensible.
And crucially, they were largely free from chronic worry and fear. They'd somehow cultivated a mental habit that just didn't give anxiety much room to grow.
Okay, so the goal is that mental freedom.
Yeah.
How do we get there? The sources lay out a very specific two-step cure, right? Something you have to practice.
Yeah.
Yes, very specific. Step one is empty the mind. Empty the mind. Sounds simple, but how?
It requires real intention and visualization. You have to vividly imagine all those worry thoughts, the insecurity, the fears just flowing out of your mind, like pulling the plug in a basin filled with dirty water.
Visualize it draining away.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And while you're doing that visualization, you need to affirm out loud or silently 5 times. With God's help, I am now emptying my mind of all anxiety, all fear, all sense of insecurity 5 times. And it's specific about when to do this too.
Yes, mid-morning, mid-afternoon, and again at bedtime. It's presented as this systematic, regular flushing out of the mental debris.
Like cleaning house mentally several times a day. But, okay, the mind hates a vacuum, right? If you just empty it, won't negative stuff just rush back in?
That's precisely why step 2 is critical. You have to immediately refill that empty space.
With what?
With creative, healthy thoughts, positive thoughts, thoughts of faith, peace, confidence. You actively occupy the space worry used to hold. The source is, quote, an artist, Howard Christie.
Yeah. His simple secret for peace was, when your mind is full of God, there is no room for worry. So it's a deliberate replacement. You push out the bad, pull in the good. It's an active process.
Very active, because the sources argue if you constantly fear something, you're actually creating the mental conditions for it to happen. The mind tends to manifest what it focuses on.
So you have to consciously practice filling it with positive images and beliefs instead.
Exactly. And for people who feel like, my worry habit is huge, I've been doing this for decades, there's the worry tree analogy.
The worry tree. How does that work?
Well, trying to tackle your biggest, deepest fear head on first is like trying to chop down a giant tree trunk with one swing. It's overwhelming. You feel defeated before you start.
Leads to paralysis.
Right. So the advice, like from a tree expert, is start smaller. Begin by snipping off the little worries first. The small branches, the leaves.
Like the everyday worry expressions.
Exactly. Things like constantly saying, I'm worried sick, or I'm afraid this will happen, or this is bound to fail. You start catching those phrases.
And stopping them, replacing them.
Yes, replacing them immediately with faith thoughts. I expect the best. Things will work out. I am secure. You shrink the big worry tree by pruning the small, everyday worry talk. Don't give it conversational airtime.
That makes sense. Chip away at it. And to really solidify this, there's that practical daily technique, the businessman's evening ritual.
Ah, yes, the evening ritual. It's a brilliant way to draw a line under the day.
It's about finality, isn't it?
Completely. This guy used one of those tear-off daily calendars where you only see today's date.
Okay.
Every evening before leaving work, he'd physically rip off that day's page. He'd roll it up into a tight little ball.
The physical act.
And drop the whole day right into the wastebasket.
I love the physicality of that. It's like literally throwing the day away.
But there was a mental or spiritual part too, wasn't there?
Absolutely. That's what made it powerful. As he dropped the rolled up page, he'd say a short prayer, making the surrender total. Something like, the day is over and I'm through with it. Its successes, its failures, whatever happened, the day is over and I'm giving it back to you. Amen. Wow. So he's consciously collaborating with the end of the day, preventing yesterday's junk from poisoning tonight and tomorrow.
Precisely. He refused to carry the day's worries and mistakes into the night. This daily act of surrender, of letting go, was his key to breaking that worry cycle.
It's powerful. It shifts the responsibility, doesn't it? Instead of his own mind chewing over every mistake, he hands the whole package over, frees up his mind to rest and, as you said, refill with the positive.
Exactly.
And that shift from defending against worry to actively refilling with positivity, that brings us right into the next part, doesn't it? Moving from defense to offense.
Yeah.
Yes. If we've managed to quiet the static of worry and fuming, the next stage, according to these sources, is to actively inject positive power. And the fundamental law they lay down in Chapter 7 is pretty bold.
Which is?
Expect the best and you will get the best. Simple as that. The challenge is to fundamentally change your default mental setting from doubt or hoping for the best to expecting the best.
Okay, that sounds a bit like generic positive thinking maybe, but the sources frame it differently.
They frame it as tapping into a powerful natural law. But, and this is crucial, they stress it can't just be vague, fuzzy hope. Your expectation needs a laser focus, a clearly defined objective.
Ah, right. Vague ambition doesn't cut it.
Exactly. They tell the story of a young man who kept failing. He was ambitious, sure, but he had no clue where he wanted to go or what he was actually good at.
Aimless energy.
Right. Aimlessness cancels out expectation because the force has nowhere to go, no target.
Okay, so you need a clear goal. Then what? What happens when you focus all your energy on that goal? They talk about this irresistible force, don't they?
They do. The idea is when you consolidate everything you've got, your physical energy, your emotional commitment, your spiritual belief, your intellectual focus, and bring it all to bear on that one clear objective. The combined power is described as, well, irresistible.
Irresistible. That's a strong word.
It is, and that's why they argue that most failure doesn't come from outside barriers. It comes from inside, from a lack of wholeheartedness.
Wholeheartedness. The sources call people who lack it holdouts.
Yeah, holdouts, people who are always keeping a little something back, a little doubt, a little less effort, just in case they refuse to commit 100%.
And the lesson is?
Success demands total investment. You have to throw everything you are at it, no holding back.
That idea of total commitment, especially the spiritual part of it first, is captured in that story about the climbing instructor, isn't it? The boy on the bar.
Oh yeah, that's a classic illustration they use. This boy is stuck, frozen on a climbing bar, terrified to move forward, paralyzed by fear, and the instructor's advice seems so simple, almost cryptic. Throw your heart over the bar.
Exactly. Deceptively simple but profound. It means your faith, your belief, your mental picture of success, your spiritual essence has to go over the obstacle first.
Commit the non-physical part.
Yes. You achieve the victory mentally, spiritually, before you achieve it physically. Once your heart, your faith is over the bar, the body naturally follows along the path that your belief has already cleared. Expect the best, picture it, commit fully, and the physical self follows.
Okay, so for people looking for a concrete formula for applying this kind of powerful expectation, the text points to the Bible, specifically Mark 11.
Right. It's presented not just as scripture, but as a kind of spiritual science, a mechanism with 3 parts.
What are they?
First, have faith in God. That's the foundation. Second, whosoever shall say unto this mountain. That's the specific problem, the clear objective we talked about. Be thou removed. You have to speak it, affirm it. Vocalize the goal.
Yes. And third, critically, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe. That's the wholeheartedness, no holdouts. He shall have whatsoever he saith. That's the guaranteed result, according to the formula.
Faith as a base, specific spoken affirmation, and complete internal belief without doubt. That combination is supposed to move the mountain or solve the problem.
That's the principle laid out. It's presented as the scientifically correct way to apply faith power. And moving from that power of expectation into Chapter 8, which has that really defiant title, I Don't Believe in Defeat. What's the core technique here? It's about how you engage with obstacles once they appear. The core message is, don't fear them, attack them head on.
Don't shy away.
No. The sources insist that obstacles rarely have the power we give them in our minds. They tell this story about a British general, tutor, in a battle. He faced this seemingly impossible enemy position.
What did he do?
He basically just stood there, watching it intently, refusing to accept it as insurmountable, while ordering his forces to maintain pressure. And eventually, the obstacle just broke. It collapsed under the sustained force of his denial and his troops' advance. So the lesson is, face the obstacle, don't complain about it, don't build it up in your mind, just keep applying pressure and it will break, not you. Something has to give, and the sources are adamant it won't be you. If your will, your expectation is fully committed.
And often, like with worry, the real difficulty isn't the external thing itself, but our mental reaction to it, like the golf pro example.
Oh, yeah, the ball in the rough, that's perfect.
Right, yeah.
The golfer sees his ball land in thick grass and immediately thinks, oh no, this is impossible. The rough is too tough. I'll never get a good shot. Defeatist attitude right away.
But the pro has him do something different.
Yeah, tells him to get right down there on his hands and knees and actually look closely at the grass around the ball.
And what does he find?
He finds the individual blades of grass are actually pretty tender. A sharp, decisive, confident swing will slice right through them. The rough wasn't the real problem.
It was the idea of the rough being tough.
Yeah.
The mental obstacle. Exactly. The phrase to remember is, the rough is only mental. Your obstacles are real, sure, but your attitude about them is what dictates everything that happens next. That focus on attitudes connects directly to that ingenious little system a businessman used for tough problems, the wire basket method.
Yes, this guy, head of a small firm, was constantly feeling swamped by difficult issues.
So he got a basket.
A big, simple wire mesh basket, put it right on his desk where he could see it, and he attached a little card to the front.
With what on it? A powerful affirmation. With God, all things are possible. Okay, but it wasn't just a decoration, right? It was functional.
Totally functional. It was a psychological tool, a mechanism for handling overwhelm. Whenever a tricky problem landed on his desk, something that triggered that usual worry and defeat reaction, you know, a tough negotiation paper, a personnel issue.
The kind of thing that makes your stomach clench.
Exactly. He would physically take that paper or a note about the problem and just toss it into the wire basket and leave it there for a day or two.
Literally putting the problem somewhere else.
And symbolically, dramatizing, putting it in God's hands, trusting that affirmation on the front. He was externalizing it, creating distance.
And did it work? What happened when he took the paper out later?
The report is, yes, it worked remarkably well. When he retrieved the problem later, that feeling of crisis of impossibility had usually vanished. It just seemed manageable.
So the basket didn't magically solve it, but the act of putting it aside combined with the affirmation.
It broke the cycle. It interrupted the panic and rumination that makes problems seem way bigger than they are. It forced a pause, shifted the perceived responsibility from his limited self to an infinite resource, and that reset his mental attitude, allowing him to tackle it effectively.
It's like a cognitive reset button you can physically press.
That's a great way to describe it. Using physical action and spiritual belief to rewire your approach to difficulty.
Okay, so all this focus on tackling problems brings us neatly to Chapter 10. This one seems zeroed in on unlocking the power we already have inside us to deal with personal crises, right?
Exactly. And the sources stress two main things up front. First, you have to realize that the power to solve your problems is actually inherent within you. It's not somewhere else.
It's already there.
Yes. But second, accessing it effectively requires a plan. Not just a practical plan, but a spiritual and emotional plan. They argue that a lot of failure comes from simply being spiritually and emotionally planless when trouble hits.
Just reacting, basically.
Right. And usually reacting with emotions like animosity or resentment, especially when we feel wronged, which, the sources argue, is the biggest block to finding a good solution. This leads to the put it in God's hands method, which is illustrated really well by the story of Bill and Mary.
Ah, Bill and Mary. Remind us, Bill got unfairly passed over for a promotion, right?
Yeah, dedicated guy, new boss comes in, overlooks him, even demotes him, totally unfair. And Mary, his wife, is furious, naturally. Wants him to quit immediately, tell the boss off.
Standard reaction. Feel the injustice, react with anger.
Totally understandable. But the advice they got from someone described as a spiritual scientist was counterintuitive. They were strongly advised not to let hate or bitterness take root.
Why not? He had every right to be angry.
Because, the counsel went, hate poisons you. It corrodes your own soul, messes up your thinking, blinds you to smarter, long-term strategies. To find the right answer, not just an emotionally satisfying one, they needed guidance beyond their own hurt feelings. They needed to try a, quote, Christian approach.
Which meant?
Cooperation instead of retaliation, trusting that the best solution would emerge if they handled the disappointment without letting animosity take over.
Wow. That must have been incredibly hard advice to follow. To cooperate with the person who just screwed you over.
Immensely hard. But Mary, despite her anger, saw the logic. They wanted the best outcome long-term, not just immediate revenge. So Bill made the difficult choice. He stayed, cooperated, even became helpful to the new president, who, it turned out, often needed his expertise. He kept doing excellent work, despite the demotion.
Swallowing his pride, essentially.
Yeah.
And what happened? Did it pay off?
According to the story, yes, big time. Years down the line, completely unexpectedly, Bill gets the call. The president is out, and the board is making Bill the new president of the whole company.
Whoa.
Yeah. And for Bill and Mary, it was this powerful confirmation. The principles worked. They had navigated a huge personal and professional crisis successfully, not by lashing out, but by deliberately choosing a non-resentful, strategic, faith-based approach. They felt they'd use spiritually scientific principles to achieve the best result.
That idea of bringing a higher power into the problem-solving process, that connects to another technique, doesn't it? The unseen partner technique.
Yes, that one really formalizes the concept. It's about consciously thinking of God, or whatever infinite wisdom you connect with, as a literal, active partner in your daily life and work.
Taking God with us, Emmanuel, literally.
Exactly. The example given is a businessman whose company was failing. He was at the end of his rope, totally exhausted, felt like he had no answers left.
So how did he implement this partnership? Did he just start praying more?
It was more structured than that. He started a daily ritual. He would deliberately sit down and talk through every single problem, every challenge, every decision with this unseen partner.
Out loud, or just mentally?
The source implies actually verbalizing it, articulating the issues, the options, as if talking to a trusted advisor. His belief was that the insights and solutions that came to him during or after this process would be clearer, better, free from his own fear and fatigue, because they were coming through him from this infinite source.
And the result for his business?
A complete turnaround. He realized he'd been trying to carry the whole load himself, relying only on his own limited strength and perspective. Once he consciously shifted, shared the burden, let insights flow to him rather than trying to force them from him, the pressure eased, clarity came, and the business recovered.
All these methods, emptying the mind, expectation, putting things in God's hands, they require a really deep commitment to faith. which can feel abstract for people. But the story of Maurice Flint and his little device, that makes it incredibly tangible, doesn't it?
Oh, the mustard seed remembrancer. Yes, that's such a moving and practical example. Flint was apparently just drowning, debt, failure, hopelessness, just totally beaten down.
And he heard that teaching about faith. Yeah, the famous line, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, nothing shall be impossible unto you. And it resonated, but he struggled. How do you hold on to faith that small when everything feels impossible? He realized he needed something physical, something constant to remind him, make the abstract idea concrete.
Exactly. He needed to literally put the mustard seed concept into practice.
So he started carrying seeds around.
Tried that first, yeah. Loose mustard seeds in his pocket. But they're tiny, right? Easily lost, easily forgotten. It wasn't working well. But that struggle itself sparked the innovation.
Which was?
To encapsulate a single, tiny mustard seed inside a clear plastic ball, creating a permanent, visible, tangible reminder he could carry always, the mustard seed remembrancer. The physical object became the anchor for the mental shift he needed.
And even making the thing was a test of faith, wasn't it? Didn't someone tell him it was impossible?
Yes, that's a key part. An expert told him, you can't embed the seed in the plastic without creating an air bubble. It's technically impossible.
So the very act of creating his faith reminder required
faith. Beautiful, isn't it? He had to believe he could do the impossible just to make the symbol of believing in the impossible. He persisted, figured out how to do it bubble-free, and succeeded.
And that little ball, that physical reminder, it changed things for him.
Dramatically, according to the account. Carrying it, seeing it, touching it, constantly reinforced the idea of possibility. It pulled him and his family out of despair, grounded his fledgling faith, and get this, actually became a successful business for him, making and selling these remembrancers. It's this incredible illustration of how a tangible symbol, born from applying a principle literally, can reinforce belief and transform a life.
The Flint story really ties it all together, doesn't it? It shows how shifting your internal state, using these techniques, visualization, physical aids, daily practices, managing emotions can take someone from utter defeat to victory. Hashtag tag outro.
It really does. You know, this whole deep dive, it's given us a really practical toolkit, hasn't it? We've covered such a range of applied methods.
Yeah, from the physical stuff like deliberately slowing down or unclenching your fist to cool anger,
to the mental conditioning, that discipline of emptying out worry and consciously, immediately refilling with faith and positive expectation.
and then using those really specific tools. The calendar ritual for ending the day, the wire basket for problem distancing, the mustard seed for making faith tangible.
And the common thread, the thing woven through absolutely everything, is that insistence on commitment, on wholeheartedness.
Right. The source is really blunt about it. They say the basic reason people fail isn't usually bad luck or external factors. It's error within himself. It's wrong thinking.
Plain and simple. So the challenge, the takeaway, is stop being a holdout. You have to give your whole self to the goal, and crucially, you have to practice these principles daily.
It's not enough just to understand them intellectually.
Not at all. The text assures us, look, if success really does hinge mostly on our mental patterns, then we absolutely have the power to spot the errors and fix them. We've pulled out the techniques, now it's about applying them.
Okay, so to wrap up, here's maybe a final thought, something provocative for you, the listener, to take away and chew on. If achieving that successful, victorious life really does come down to fixing habitual negative thinking, what is the one specific, deeply ingrained error pattern in your thinking?
Yeah, what's your go-to negative loop? Is it chronic worry about finances? Is it that knee-jerk feeling of defeat when you face a challenge? Is it expecting things to go wrong?
Identify that core error pattern, and then, based on what we've discussed today, what truth pattern, what specific technique, emptying and refilling, the wire basket, the mustard seed mindset, are you going to start applying right now, today, to replace it and unlock that successful life you want?
It really comes down to self-awareness, doesn't it? And then immediate action. Find your pattern, pick your tool, and start that practice today.
Welcome to the deep dive. So today our mission is maybe a little different. We're not wading through, philosophy or theory.
Right.
We are drilling straight down into these final chapters, the really action-oriented stuff from this stack of sources. We want to pull out a clear, detailed manual for living successfully.
Exactly. Practical techniques you can use right away.
Yeah, things for energy, for relationships, health, all of it. This is about moving past just thinking better and actually doing better.
And that focus on doing is really what stands out here, I think. The core idea across these chapters is that these aren't just nice thoughts or suggestions.
Yeah.
They're presented as demonstrated, effective, almost scientific techniques for living well. The source material frames them as powerful ideas from the greatest teacher who ever lived. Basically a simple scientific system of applying belief.
A system designed to lead you toward, well, happy, satisfying, worthwhile life.
That's the goal. So uncovering those precise, practical instructions is what we're after today.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Straight into the physical and spiritual side of things. Tackling health first. We're starting with faith, healing, and vitality renewal.
Makes sense. It's fundamental.
You know, when people face a really serious illness, maybe a terminal diagnosis, there's often this feeling, this conflict, like you have to choose. Is it medicine or is it faith?
Yeah, that's a common dilemma. But this material, it offers a very clear, integrated strategy. It actually rejects that choice entirely.
How so?
Well, it argues pretty compellingly for the optimal approach being a combination of medical science and spiritual science. The key phrase they use is simple but powerful. God and the doctor.
God and the doctor.
Exactly. The idea is you use the best human skill, the training, the knowledge, all of that. And then you combine it with what they describe as the boundless scientific power of faith. It's like a force multiplier for healing.
Okay, a force multiplier. And they back this up with a really striking story, don't they? The businessman with osteoma of the jaw.
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful one. Osteoma of the jaw. I mean, that's a severe bone tumor. He had a terminal diagnosis. Doctors basically said, go home, get your affairs in order.
Right. So what changed? What did the source say turned it around from?
Well, years later, he's reported as being alive and vigorous. And the source points directly to the skillful work of the physician plus. That plus, they argue, was the amazing power of faith.
So it wasn't just luck or a misdiagnosis.
No, it's presented as activating a scientific spiritual law, a law that actually facilitates the body's own healing capacity. Faith, they're saying, is this often neglected but incredibly effective factor in influencing regeneration.
What's really interesting, too, is how quickly the material connects physical health to emotional health. It's not just about, germs or cells gone wrong.
Absolutely crucial point. They mentioned a doctor who found that a surprising number of his patients didn't really need medicine as much as they needed a fundamental shift in their thought patterns, a mental overhaul.
So illness can actually stem from emotional issues.
That's what they strongly suggest. Think about the sheer energy it takes to maintain a negative state, like, say, deep-seated hatred, for years and years. It's exhausting.
Yeah, you can feel that drain.
They share this anecdote about a man with a long-standing physical condition. It finally corrected itself only after he gave up a grudge he'd held for ages. He started practicing forgiveness.
And the physical symptoms improved.
Yeah, his healing, which medicine has struggled with, was ultimately helped by both the medical treatment and this new mental attitude. It was like the emotional poison, that chronic stress of ill will had to be neutralized first.
Okay, so if we accept this integrated system, you need the emotional cleanup, the spiritual surrender, and the medical help. What are the actual steps? The source lists 5 essential factors based on successful healings. What are the first couple?
Right. The first 2 are really about total release, total letting go. Number 1 is a complete willingness to surrender oneself into the hands of God.
Complete willingness. That sounds tough.
It is. And number 2 follows a complete letting go of all error or sin and a genuine desire to be cleansed in the soul. This isn't just thinking about it. It's presented as an active, definitive act of spiritual, relinquishment.
That first one, complete surrender. I mean, when you're facing something terrifying physically, your instinct is to fight, to control.
Yeah.
Letting go must be incredibly difficult.
It really must be. And that difficulty kind of gets amplified in the 4th factor they list.
Which is?
A sincere willingness to accept God's answer, whatever it may be, without bitterness or irritation against his will.
Oh, so you can't demand a specific outcome. If you do, you haven't really surrendered.
Exactly. And that bitterness itself, the source suggests, is like another emotional poison. It actually sabotages the healing power they're describing.
Makes sense. Okay, so what are the other factors? Numbers 3 and 5.
Number 3 is belief and faith in the combined therapy, seeing medical science and God's power working together in harmony, not against each other.
Right, the God and the doctor idea again.
And number 5 wraps it up. A substantial, unquestioning faith that God can heal. Not necessarily that he will in the exact way you demand, but that the power is there. It creates this kind of integrated circuit. You've got the medical expertise, the emotional purification, and this total spiritual belief all working together intentionally.
That intentionality, that practice. It even extends to how we pray for others who are sick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So many people worry intensely, maybe even panic about loved ones.
Yes, and the source gives specific rules for praying for others that focus a lot on managing our own mindset during that time. It's quite practical.
Like what? What should you avoid?
Well, first, you're specifically told to avoid panic or fear. The reasoning given is that these negative thoughts actually send destructive energy towards the person who's ill. If you're radiating fear, you're not helping. You might even be hindering.
Wow. So the spiritual work is as much about my internal state as it is about asking for help for someone else.
Precisely. It's about maintaining spiritual health within the support system, too.
Okay. What are the other practical rules then?
You need to completely surrender the loved one into God's hands. This involves aligning your desire for them to live with a genuine willingness to relinquish them if that's the outcome. It's that acceptance piece again.
That's incredibly hard.
It is. Then you need to form a clear mental picture of the loved one as well, actively visualizing them in perfect health, using that power of positive visualization we talked about.
Okay. Visualize wellness. What else?
Promote spiritual harmony within the family. Arguments, tensions, those things disrupt the positive atmosphere needed. And finally, the prayer itself should shift. Instead of constantly asking, you should focus on thanking God for his goodness, assuming the healing power is already at work.
So gratitude as an act of faith.
Yes, that affirmative faith, that thankfulness is described as the mechanism that helps release that deep spiritual power. It's believing it's already happening.
Okay, so that covers healing and faith. But sometimes the issue isn't a major illness, it's just being drained. Low energy, vitality sagging. Where does the source say that drain usually starts?
Very often, it starts emotionally. That feeling of low energy, apathy, just being listless. It's frequently rooted in our emotional states, not just physical fatigue.
Right.
The source quotes a physiologist who said, basically, that diseases caused by emotions are just as real as those caused by bacteria. The difference is, it's an emotional disorder, not necessarily a mental disease in the clinical sense.
And things like fear and guilt are major culprits.
Huge energy drains. They cause such an extreme leakage of vitality that you only have a fraction left for just, getting through the day. That leads to that chronic, dull, tired feeling.
The doctor who coined the term gringitis, that really drove the point home for me.
Yeah, that poor man who apparently died because of a long-held hatred. It's a tragic but perfect example. The physician believed this intense chronic ill will had literally lowered the man's physical resistance.
When something else hit him.
He just didn't have the stamina to fight it off. He died, essentially, from this long, slow, self-inflicted emotional poisoning. So the big three destructive attitudes highlighted are definitely resentment, hate, and guilt. They're treated almost like physical toxins.
When you're dealing with that kind of massive chronic drain, especially from guilt, the sources talk about a really dramatic release technique. There was a man nearing breakdown from secrets and fear.
Oh, yes. The transformation described there is instant and intensely physical. He was carrying this huge, tangled mess of lies, sins he'd committed, terrified of exposure.
So what happened?
He went through this thorough, mind-emptying process, basically, a detailed confession, then a simple prayer for forgiveness. And the relief was immediate. Palpable.
How did they describe it?
He literally stood up, started stretching his arms way up high, took this deep, full breath, and just exclaimed, I feel good. That physical act, the stretching, the deep breath, it's like you could see the weight of that guilt lifting off him, allowing energy to flow freely again.
That's for a major crisis, obviously. But what about the day-to-day energy leaks? Like anger, irritation, the smaller stuff that still drains us. Are there quick fixes?
Yes. The source provides some immediate, tactical, anti-anger techniques. They're almost like psychological tricks to break the physiological cycle of rage before it really grabs hold.
Like what?
They advise deliberately fighting the heat of anger with coolness. You have to consciously decide to freeze it out. Don't feed the fire.
Okay, freeze it out. Are there physical actions involved?
Yes. When you feel that hot surge coming on, consciously keep your hands from clenching. Force your fingers to stay straight. Just that simple act of physically opposing the anger manifestation can disrupt the cycle.
Interesting. What else?
This one's surprising. Immediately reduce your voice tone to a whisper.
A whisper.
Yeah. The source points out a simple truth. You cannot carry on an argument in a whisper. It just sounds ridiculous, right? It forces a kind of calm, diffuses the tension.
Huh. I can see that. It's hard to shout and whisper.
Exactly. And finally, when your feelings get hurt, maybe someone slights you or says something sharp, the advice is to immediately apply spiritual iodine.
Spiritual iodine. What's that? Like first aid for feelings.
Precisely. It's like an immediate mental antiseptic. You use a quick prayer of love or forgiveness right then and there, before the situation festers.
So you don't let the hurt sit and turn into resentment, which then drains your energy.
Exactly. You neutralize the poison on contact. It's very proactive, aimed at protecting your internal vitality.
That leads perfectly into the next big area, the practical remaking of the mind. If our energy depends on our emotional state and our emotions depend on our thoughts, then changing our thoughts is fundamental. Chapter 13 kicks off with a really foundational quote.
Yes, it starts with the psychologist William James. He asserted, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind."
That's huge.
It really is. And it's not presented as just a nice self-help idea. It sets the stage for a almost mechanical, actionable process of transformation. It's about changing your internal programming.
And the mechanism for that change is the power of thought itself. The source treats thoughts almost like physical things.
They do. They state pretty plainly that thoughts are things, and they possess dynamic power. They act kind of like magnets.
Magnets. How so?
Negative thoughts create this atmosphere that tends to attract negative results, while positive thoughts, especially when they're affirmed and truly believed, tend to attract positive outcomes. So the very first step in changing your external reality, whether it's your job, your health, whatever, has to be forming a clear, positive picture in your mind of how things should be.
We see this power demonstrated in that story about the depressed man. He was totally transformed just by reading one sentence.
Right. He was apparently trapped in this cycle of weakness, failure, feeling down all the time. He'd essentially programmed himself for defeat. Until he read and fully adopted the phrase, "The Lord is the strength of my life. In this will I be confident." He reported that everything changed, like instantly. That's how it's described, like an immediate infusion of strength, confidence, faith. It just forcibly pushed out the negativity he'd been living with. He found a new dominant thought pattern.
That's a personal transformation. But what about applying this to tangible external goals, like in business? The story about Growing Guidepost magazine comes to mind.
Yes, that's a great example of this prayerize, picturize, actualize philosophy in action. The magazine was really struggling financially in its early days.
So what did they do? Just hope harder?
No, a mentor suggested they stop worrying and start visualizing. The team was told not just to hope for success, but to actively, vividly visualize 100,000 subscribers, see it clearly, affirm it daily, and truly believe it was going to happen. It was applying a spiritual exercise directly to a business metric.
Now, for someone listening who hasn't tried this, it might sound a bit like wishful thinking. How does the source differentiate between just passively wanting something and this active visualization?
That's a key distinction. Wishful thinking is passive. It often lacks real belief, and crucially, it lacks the action component. This prayerize, picturize, actualize technique is presented as active.
Okay, break that down. Prayerize.
First, you prayerize, you affirm your faith that the power to achieve it exists, that it's available.
Picturize.
Then you picturize, you create a detailed, specific mental image of the desired result. See it, feel it.
And actualize.
And then you actualize. You take the necessary practical steps out in the real world, but now you're driven by the firm belief in that mental picture you created. The belief fuels the action.
And in the Guidepost case, this visualization seemed to work incredibly fast.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
They mention a specific person, a rubber manufacturer nicknamed Pinky, who just immediately latched onto this visualization technique. He could vividly picture the 100,000 subscribers. And that immediate, intense belief from him seemed to, well, electrify the whole process. It demonstrated how quickly the magnetic power, as the source calls it, of a focused, positive thought could start attracting the needed resources and outcomes.
Okay, so the source distills this whole mind remaking process into 7 specific steps. A program for changing your mental attitude, shifting from error patterns to truth patterns. Let's walk through those. What are the first few?
Right. The first couple are really focused on breaking the habit of negative speech. Step 1. For a full 24 hours, deliberately speak hopefully about everything. Your job, your health, the future. Absolutely no negative talk allowed.
Just 24 hours to start.
Okay. Step 2. After you manage that first day, continue speaking hopefully every single day for 1 full week.
So the idea is to force your conscious mind to break that verbal habit of complaining or being pessimistic.
Exactly. And that, in turn, starts to reinforce the positive thought patterns you're trying to build internally.
That seems doable, actually.
Yeah.
Challenging, but doable. What comes next? How does it involve other people?
Steps 3, 5, and 6 bring in the interpersonal aspect. Step 3 is refuse to say anything negative about anyone for 3 days. Just stop the criticism.
Ooh, that might be harder than the first one for some people.
Could be. Then step 5 is try to help 3 people to think positively. Share the technique, share the power.
Okay, pay it forward.
And step 6, avoid arguments if you can, but actively counter every negative attitude you encounter with a positive and optimistic opinion. So it's not just about fixing yourself, it's about becoming a positive force in your environment too.
Right. Changing the atmosphere around you. What finishes the list?
The final steps circle back to internal work and faith. Step 4 is practice thinking hopefully for 1 week, really internalizing the positive speech you've been practicing.
Thinking it, not just saying it.
Right. And step 7 is crucial. Pray a great deal, but always frame your prayers as thanksgiving. Assume God is already giving you great and wonderful things even before you physically see them.
Ah, so that's the difference between just hoping and active faith again. You express gratitude for the outcome you believe is already on its way.
Precisely. It's that conviction that activates the power.
Okay, this leads us right into the next challenge. You can have a positive attitude, but if you're completely stressed out and exhausted, how long can that positivity last? Chapter 14 is all about the need to relax for easy power.
Yeah, and the need is pretty dramatic, isn't it? The source throws out this staggering statistic from the 1950s, an estimate of 7.5 billion headaches annually just in the U.S.
7.5 billion, that averages out to what, like 50 headaches per person per year?
Something like that. It paints a picture of an epidemic of internal tension, just constant anxiety being pushed back into the body, causing physical symptoms. Doctors were apparently observing that they often couldn't heal patients effectively because the patients were literally thinking themselves sick with tension and anxiety.
Which is why the source really hammers home this easy does it rule. Relax for easy power, not overstraining for power. It sounds almost counterintuitive. Relax to be more powerful.
It does sound that way, but it's really about efficiency. Think about that analogy they use the big league baseball player.
Right, trying to kill the ball.
Exactly. If a player tenses up, tries too hard, gets rigid, they actually fail. Their muscles don't work together smoothly. The most effective way, the way to get the most power and accuracy, is the easy method. Relaxed muscles, flexible, operating in coordination.
Like Ty Cobb, who dominated batting averages for years.
Precisely. His power came from that efficient, relaxed approach. So in our work, in our lives, we need to stop over-trying, stop over-pressing to the point where we become tense and wildly inefficient. Easy does it.
So how do busy, successful people actually integrate this? How do they find time to relax, to connect with the divine when schedules are packed? The sources give some concrete examples.
They do. It's about deliberately making the time and space. We hear about the business executive who made it a non-negotiable practice to have a period of quietness every morning with his wife. They'd read inspiring passages together, just setting a calm, harmonious tone for the day.
Starting the day right.
Then there's the incredibly practical idea of using minute prayers at red traffic lights.
Minute prayers at red lights.
Yeah, just briefly closing your eyes, shutting out the noise and rush for a moment, and concentrating on God's presence. Consciously drawing on that peaceful power during a little interlude that's usually just frustrating or wasted time.
That's brilliant, turning a common frustration into like a spiritual pause button.
Isn't it? And then the really powerful example of Dale Carnegie. He demonstrated ultimate control over his time, not by waiting until he was less busy, but by purposefully leaving his office for 15 minutes of prayerful meditation precisely when he was busiest.
When the pressure was highest.
Yes. It showed that taking that time is an active decision, a way of asserting control, not a passive luxury for when things calm down.
Okay, then there's the really unusual advice. The cemetery prescription. Given to that super aggressive, workaholic businessman.
Yes, that one's memorable. A classic example of a radical intervention for what was essentially a profound ego problem combined with extreme tension.
So what was the prescription exactly?
The doctor told this go-getter businessman who took work home every night that he had to take 2 hours every working day for a long walk, and on top of that, spend a half day every week just sitting in a cemetery.
In a cemetery? Why on earth a cemetery? That sounds morbid.
It sounds it, but the psychological purpose was apparently quite sharp. The doctor wanted him to sit there and meditate on the gravestones. Specifically, the gravestones of men who probably thought the world rested entirely on their shoulders.
To get some perspective.
Exactly. To achieve a proper sense of his own importance, or maybe lack thereof in the grand scheme, to realize the world would carry on just fine without him micromanaging every single thing, and fundamentally just to slow down his pace.
Did it work?
According to the source, yes. The man learned to delegate, he stopped fuming and fretting constantly, and he gained tremendous relief. The bizarre prescription actually cured his ego-driven tension.
That's a powerful lesson, tying relaxation directly to humility, to managing your ego. So to make this practical for listeners, let's quickly run through those 10 rules for easy power. The ways to work hard, but easily. The antidote to being Atlas.
Okay, let's nail them down. The first few are about mindset and approach. 1, don't be Atlas. Stop carrying the world on your shoulders. Don't strain so hard.
Basically, check your ego.
Right. 2, determine to like your work. That positive attitude itself reduces friction. 3, plan your work. Work your plan. Simple organization eliminates a ton of stress.
Okay, ego check, positive attitude, get organized. What about focus and how you actually do the work?
That's covered too. 4, don't try to do everything at once. Remember the biblical advice. This one thing I do, focus simplifies things.
One thing at a time. Makes sense.
6, become efficient in your work. Know your stuff. Inefficiency breeds anxiety. 7, practice being relaxed. Remember, Ty Cobb Easy always does it best. Consciously practice relaxation while working.
Efficiency and relaxed action. What about the remaining rules? Attitude and maybe something bigger.
Yes. 5, get a correct mental attitude. How you think about the job determines whether it feels easy or hard. 8, discipline yourself not to put off until tomorrow what you can do today. Procrastination is a huge tension builder.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
We all are. 9, pray about your work. Specifically ask for relaxed efficiency. And finally, number 10, take on the unseen partner, God. Actively share the load. This is framed as the ultimate technique for delegation and managing the burden, recognizing you're not carrying it all alone.
Okay, so we've looked inward at healing, energy, mindset, relaxation. Now let's shift focus outward to connecting with others. Chapter 15 is a really practical guide on how to get people to like you. It starts by just acknowledging that fundamental human need.
Yeah, that universal desire to be liked, to be appreciated. The source mentions that poll of high school students' popularity was overwhelmingly the top goal. It runs deep.
But it also includes a necessary reality check, right? The Dr. Fell reference.
Exactly. Quoting that old rhyme, I do not like thee, Dr. Fell, the reason why I cannot tell. It's a reminder that sometimes, no matter what you do, some people just won't like you, maybe for reasons you can't even figure out. And that's okay. You shouldn't let that unavoidable minority stop you from working on the positive relationships you can influence.
Don't let the exceptions derail the rule. Good point. The chapter then uses this really poignant contrast between two doctors at a Rotary lunch to show the difference between being wanted and feeling unwanted.
Oh, that's a very telling anecdote. You have the young, popular doctor, totally frazzled, complaining about his phone ringing constantly, never getting a break.
Right. Overwhelmed, but clearly in demand.
And then you have the older, retired doctor sitting nearby who quietly admits that he deeply, deeply misses the sound of that ringing telephone. It powerfully illustrates the point that the feeling of not being wanted or needed is one of the most devastating of all human reactions. To feel truly fulfilled, the source argues, you need that affirmation that others seek you out, that you're needed.
So how do you cultivate that? How do you master this art of popularity, not in a superficial way, but genuinely? The source looks at figures known for their people skills, like James A. Parley.
Yes, Parley is presented as a master of sincere connection, not just networking tricks. He famously had an incredible memory for names, which helped.
But it was more than just names, wasn't it? There's that story about the hotel maid.
That's the most illustrative part. He was walking with a group of important speakers, and he deliberately stopped to greet a hotel corridor maid. The text specifically notes she was a colored maid, highlighting someone often overlooked in that era and context. He greeted her by name, shook her hand, and gave her his genuine attention for that moment.
That simple act of acknowledgement.
Exactly. The source emphasizes that the real power lies in that one basic trait: sincere, forthright interest and love for people, Not faked interest, but genuine care. All the other desirable traits, like remembering names or being charming, they argue, naturally flow from that core sincerity.
It's not just remembering the name, it's seeing the person. That changes everything.
It really does. And this focus on sincere interaction leads right into another technique described a very specific spiritual practice for improving relationships called the prayer technique.
Right. This was suggested for a man who was kind of suffering from, well, excessive self-love, a superiority complex. His attitude was pushing people away.
Yeah, he was subtly critical, maybe a bit arrogant, and didn't realize why people reacted negatively. The technique required him to use his faith to basically correct his own internal attitude.
How did it work? What did he have to do?
Every night, he had to make a list of all the people he'd encountered that day. Anyone and everyone, the bus driver, the clerk at the store, the newsboy, colleagues.
Everyone. That sounds like a lot of effort.
It does. And then he had to take the time to pray for each one of those people individually.
Okay, wait. Is the point here to change them through prayer? Or is it more about how praying for them changes him, like forcing his own mind to see them differently?
Exactly the latter. The intent is entirely internal. By systematically praying for everyone in his daily orbit, the practice forces his own attitude to shift. It makes his critical mind engage with them on a spiritual level. It helps his best to flow toward them, as the source puts it.
And that naturally improves the relationship from his side, which then likely gets a better response.
Precisely. It modifies his personal attitude, enabling a kind of higher unity and a better connection.
Okay, and the final piece of this relationship mastery puzzle seems to be actively building the ego of other people, as opposed to, tearing them down, even subtly.
Yes, this is paramount. Actively building up the ego of others, making them feel respected, important, valued, is presented as a key skill.
And they contrast this with, what was it? The person who hears someone tell a joke.
Right, the person who immediately jumps in with, oh yeah, I heard that one last month. They just undercut the joke teller, robbing them of that little moment of satisfaction, that feeling of having shared something successfully. It's a small thing, but it diminishes the other person's ego.
Instead of doing that, we should.
Instead, practice the opposite. Elevate them. The example given is Dr. Hoffman, who apparently made a practice of deliberately overestimating people in a positive way, saying things like, I believe in you, you have great possibilities.
So actively looking for and articulating the best in others.
Yes. That practice of building others up, making them feel good about themselves in your presence, virtually guarantees their esteem and affection will flow back towards you.
Okay. Powerful stuff for relationships. Now, we have to shift gears pretty dramatically because Chapter 16 tackles something much heavier, prescription for heartache. This gets into profound loss, grief, even the fear of death itself. What's a poor prescription here?
When facing that kind of deep pain, the fundamental curative comfort offered is threefold. Turning to RAD, practicing spiritual self-emptying, letting go of the bitterness, the why me, and sheer perseverance in faith.
So it's not about just forgetting the loss.
No, not at all. The goal isn't erasure, but rather filling the mind with a deep spiritual understanding of the meaning behind loss, behind this inevitable part of life. The aim is that the grief itself is eventually lifted and dissipated, replaced by a profound assurance that you haven't truly lost your loved one in an ultimate sense.
And this assurance is tied to a specific philosophical idea about existence itself, right? The indivisibility of life.
Absolutely. The source strongly embraces this philosophy, the belief that there is, in essence, no death as a final separation, that life is indivisible, time and eternity are seen as inseparable.
So existence is like one continuous reality.
One unobstructed universe is how they phrase it. It's a powerful concept. They even bring in the philosopher Henri Bergson, who talked about grasping truth about deathlessness, not just through logic, but through a kind of mortal leap, an intuitive conviction, a deep inner knowing that transcends rational proof.
Okay, so the comfort comes from this deep philosophical certainty that death is just a transition within one unified reality. To support this, the sources gather some really moving stories, anecdotes presented as evidence of the other side.
Yes, these anecdotes serve as the practical, experiential support for that philosophical conviction. They're meant to be convincing illustrations of continued fellowship.
What are some examples?
Well, there's the story of the dying woman whose last words described confusion. So many of them, and then sudden rupture, I'm going up, as if seeing people waiting for her.
Okay.
Then there's the neurologist patient who, on his deathbed, started calling out the names of deceased relatives he claimed he was seeing. Names the doctor didn't know, but the daughter later confirmed were correct family members who had passed. And the really poignant one about the mother whose husband and 3 children had died tragically in a fire years earlier. As she herself was dying, her last words were reportedly, "They are all here around me."
That's incredibly moving. Do they extend this idea to other situations too?
Yes, even to moments of extreme crisis. There's an account of a soldier in the Korean War who wrote to his mother. He described being intensely afraid one night, deep in battle, and feeling the distinct presence of his dead father with him, bringing a sense of calm and guidance.
So the source presents these not as proof, maybe, but as compelling evidence, asking us not to just dismiss them.
Exactly. It kind of challenges us as supposedly rational scientific people, asking how we can just brush aside this weight of profound human experience, especially given how much we don't yet understand about the universe. It frames this continued fellowship not as mere superstition, but as a genuine possibility strongly suggested by these deeply felt moments.
Okay, this brings us to the final sections, really tying it all together. Chapter 17 focuses on the practical how to draw upon that higher power. This power is described as always available, strong enough to drive out fear, hate, sickness, even moral failure. But if it's always there, why do we struggle so much to access it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the central insight offered here, the place where most people apparently stumble, is that we're often simply trying too hard.
Trying too hard. How could you try too hard to access something good?
It's about using overstrain, excessive force, tension, instead of efficiency and a kind of relaxed control or allowing. This is illustrated really well through the personal story of the young minister who is the narrator of the source material. He was feeling completely overwhelmed, nervous, stressed out in his demanding new job.
Right, and he went to see Professor Tilrow, this wise old fisherman character.
Exactly. And Tilrow's core advice was incredibly simple, almost blunt. Maybe you're trying too hard.
Stop struggling so much.
Just pretty much. He told the young minister to literally lie down, physically relax, stop the mental wrestling, and just focus on that biblical promise. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. The key isn't to generate the power yourself through sheer effort, to yield yourself to the power that's already available, to let it flow through you, like that relaxed baseball batter swinging easy-like. The formula is yield, affirm the power is flowing in, and then go do your job. But now in a relaxed, efficient way, powered by that inflow.
So it's shifting from resistance, from trying to force it, to becoming more like a conductor, letting the power flow through.
That's a great way to put it, from resistance to conductivity. And the most potent, practical, maybe even gritty example of drawing on this higher power in a real crisis is the story of Ed, the alcoholic.
Ah, yes, Ed. He'd failed countless times to quit drinking on his own.
Countless times. His friend gave him guidance that was incredibly specific and, frankly, brutally actionable. It required combining spiritual power with an immediate emergency action plan.
Okay, what was the plan?
Whenever Ed was confronted by temptation, seeing a bar, seeing a whiskey sign, he had 2 steps. First, stop and say a very specific prayer. Please, God, get me past this place.
Okay, direct appeal for help.
Direct appeal, but then immediately after the prayer came the second instruction, run like hell.
Huh. Prayer plus running like hell. I love that. But isn't that more of a clever behavioral trick? The prayer gives the mental shift maybe, but the running is just urgent, practical avoidance.
Well, yes, but that's presented as the essential insight here. It's the perfect cooperation formula. The source is quite clear. The higher power provides the immense spiritual strength needed to overcome the deep-seated addiction, the malady, but the individual must cooperate immediately with vigorous, practical action.
Belief facilitates, action seals the deal.
You got it. The belief opens the door, the physical effort walks through it. And this cooperative approach, prayer plus running, apparently achieved remarkable victories against what the source acknowledges is one of the most difficult addictions to conquer. It works when you work with it.
Okay, so moving to the epilogue then. After laying out all these techniques, all these stories, how does the source wrap it all up? What's the final takeaway on the reliability of all this?
It's a really profound, almost scientific-sounding affirmation at the end. It reiterates that these principles aren't just theories. They've been tested, verified, proven in the laboratory of spiritual experience and practical demonstration.
The laboratory of experience.
Yeah. And the core promise is stated very clearly. They work when worked. It's conditional. The principles themselves are sound, but they require application.
And for those who do apply them consistently.
The result described is a significant personal transformation. People shift from being, super critical, full of complaints, always impatient, and they gain self-control. They find this deep personal release, a real sense of satisfaction and peace. The ultimate message is that this kind of positive transformation isn't magic. It's the reliable result of practicing these deliberate positive techniques.
Wow. What an incredible journey through these really practical chapters we've touched on so much. Techniques for healing the body by dealing with emotional blocks, relaxing the mind with things like minute prayers or even that wild cemetery meditation.
Right, and mastering relationships by actively building up others' egos, not tearing them down, overcoming deep grief through a conviction of eternal connection.
And tapping into that limitless energy by cooperating with the higher power, even if it means praying, and then running like hell.
Exactly. The level of detail in the instructions is striking, isn't it? From that specific 2-part formula for Ed to the clear 24-hour process for changing your speech patterns. It really does distill these big spiritual ideas into immediate actionable steps for your everyday life.
So, okay, here's the call to action for you listening right now. Don't just let this wash over you. Pick just one of these formulas, one technique that really resonated with you today. Maybe it's the prayers pictures actualize method for some challenge you're facing. Maybe it's trying those minute prayers next time you hit a red light just to manage daily tension. Or maybe it's that simple rule of genuinely trying to build up the ego, the sense of worth of every single person you interact with today.
Just pick one.
Just pick one and commit to applying it immediately, consistently, and, well, scientifically, as the source suggests. Treat it like an experiment in your own life.
And that really leaves us with a final provocative thought to chew on. If William James was right, that the biggest discovery is our ability to change our lives by changing our attitudes.
Yeah.
And if these techniques, intense visualization, unwavering belief, specific prayers combined with action, if we're used with documented success for everything from growing a magazine to healing a bone tumor to conquering addiction, what does that truly suggest about the nature of faith?
Is it just a mystery?
Oh.
A blessing?
Or is it perhaps the deepest, most fundamental, most universal law of cause and effect there is? The idea that at the end of the day, you will eventually, inevitably receive whatever it is you truly deeply expect. According to the science, you have to decide what you're going to believe because your expectation just might be your destiny.